Hey everyone, welcome to your announcements for this week. My name is Jimmy again, and I'm doing announcements here with Christian. Or maybe not. I think you should all call him and see if he's awake. Anyway, me and not Christian would like to tell you what's happening for this week. So first of all, camp. We're excited. High school camp is coming at the beginning of summer, junior high at the end. Now for high school camp, we have a ton of spots, but we do have to start giving those up if we don't use those. So invite your friends, invite like 167 friends, that'd be awesome. We will take them all, but invite them soon because we do have to start giving some of those spots up. So if you are considering going to camp, make sure that you stop considering and just make a decision to go because it's gonna be pretty amazing. Junior high camp, we have a wait list because so many of you guys signed up, which is awesome. But if you're like, I don't know if I want to sign up because there's a wait list, just sign up because we're taking those in the order of the spots of what you sign up. So here's the deal. You go ahead and sign up for the wait list, and then if a spot becomes available, we'll take the next person on the wait list. It goes in order. So if you have a friend who cancels camp, you can't just take their spot. We take the next one on the wait list and you're good to go. So make sure you sign up for that. It doesn't cost you anything to get on the wait list. You won't lose any money. So Sunday nights, we are not meeting this week, but we are meeting April 25th, and we're still in our series called Buffering. And so I hope you guys are liking this. I know as leaders, we love being able to discuss things with you and spend time with you on Sunday. And so we're gonna keep mixing it up on Sunday nights. Every Sunday night, it's gonna look a little bit different as we head into summer. Also, seniors, keep your ears and eyes open. We are gonna be talking about a senior dinner coming up pretty soon. We just have to secure the date on that, but that's gonna be mid-May before you guys graduate, so we'll let you know about that. And then lastly, for your community groups, we are going to be taking a pause for the summer for a couple of months. So that couple of months, couple of months. Sure, that sounds good. We're gonna take a pause. So what that means is for the next, 4 weeks, 5 weeks that we have of group, come every night. Make sure you are always at your community group. Take advantage of that time with each other. We'll take a pause over summer, but during the summer, we'll actually give you a couple of opportunities to get together as a community group again. So that's about it. Enjoy the rest of this video, and I will see you guys in a couple weeks on Sunday.
All right, guys, here we are, Osahan, joining you guys live and direct from the set. Week number 2, guys, of our new series, Buffering, and really the whole thought behind the series is how do I process while I feel like life is still in process? Because let's be honest, the past year has been a lot for us to process. But guys, I think to lighten the mood, I brought a special friend with me, not Play-Doh, but Art Time Dough. And if I would be honest, guys, this number 1, I think looks better than Play-Doh. But number 2, it smells better than Play-Doh. Isn't that right, Danny?
Yeah.
Smells, I kid you not, this yellow, it smells like a banana nut muffin. I'm not exaggerating. Side note, I love banana nut muffins. But the great thing about Play-Doh or Art Time Dough, as it is, number 1, besides eating it, and I'm not going to eat this, I don't think. But the great thing about Play-Doh, besides making stuff with it, is the molding factor. Play-Doh molds into whatever you want it to be. My favorite thing about Play-Doh when I was younger was just taking it and either smacking it on my face or just my fingers into it. And then you have my fingerprints in there. Yay. But like I said, the best thing about Play-Doh is the molding factor. And just like Play-Doh, I have what? We got the yellow here. We got, what else do we have? We got, green. This also smells like banana nut muffin. I love it. And we have purple that we want to open. But molding of Play-Doh, because it really molds to whatever it's in. So see, it started out as a square because it was in a little square container, but as you play with it, you roll it around, or you mold it to my hands, right? It's the molding factor, and our minds work the same way. Our minds are molded by whatever we're in or whatever we are around. Now, last week, Pastor Jimmy kicked off this series, and as he rolled us into our moment to talk and discuss in our community groups, he talked about the importance of our mind and the importance of our thinking, and really, with that, how our thinking influences our identity. And I want us to go a little bit deeper in on what our thinking does and the importance of our thinking. Because our thinking influences what we say, and it influences what we do. An old mentor of mine used to say, you need to get rid of your stinking thinking, man. So what do we do with our thinking? Because if it influences what we say and what we do, what's influencing our thinking? Because that is the key. In Romans 1, Romans 12. Now, if you speak Spanish, it would be Romans capítulo 12. And if you speak French, it would be Romans chapitre 12. Romans chapter 12, verse number 1. It says this, verses 1 and 2, it says this: Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now, our thinking, just statement, I want you to keep this in the back of your mind as we go through like these next few minutes. Our thinking is influenced by what we give our attention to. In this particular verse, Paul, it's towards the tail end of this great letter that Paul has written to a group of Christ followers and believers in Rome. And so as he's rounding home, he starts out talking about the importance of Jesus and how Jesus is for everybody. And toward the tail end of this letter, he begins to talk about what the implications of that is for how we live our lives. He starts out here by talking about the importance of what we give our attention to, or the importance of our thinking. And so he says this, as he says here in verse number 1, he talks about, number 1, in light of what God has done for us, in light of his mercy, in light of Jesus' mercy. You may say, what is his mercy? His mercy is shown in his salvation toward us. In Ephesians chapter 1, it talks about the riches of his mercy being what saved us. Mercy is us not getting what we deserve in terms of the punishment for our sin because of Jesus. So in light of that, if we are looking and focusing and giving our attention to God's mercy, he says this is what our response should be. If we could look at mercy like this, we could look at it like a phone. Like if mercy is calling us, then are we going to answer? And if we answer, what should our answer be? He says this, he says, our answer should be this. It should be to present ourselves as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable. And he says this, he uses this interesting term. He says, that is what our proper worship is. Worship? Are you saying that if God has done this for me, then I should just be singing all day long? No, because worship is more than singing. Worship is what we give our attention or our focus to. Think about it. When we have moments in worship, if we're in church, you're focusing on God. And yes, you are singing, but it's really about your attention and your focus. So the question that we must ask then is this: what are we giving our focus and our attention to? If we'd be honest, if I'd be honest, my attention and focus isn't always on God. And that's not to say, oh man, like you're just a horrible person because your focus isn't always on God. No, that's why Paul kicks it off by saying, in light of God's mercy. When you think about God's mercy, it should redirect your attention. And so for our attention to be focused on God, it should lead us to the next part, which he talks about in verse number 2. He says, listen, in light of God's mercy, and you presenting your body as a living sacrifice, and that being your proper worship, you giving your proper attention to God, he says, then don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What do you give most of your attention to? What occupies your attention? if I'd be honest, more often than not, and I'm getting better at it, it's this, my phone. As a matter of fact, I have two of them. That's crazy, right? I have two phones. And here's the thing. That means that's double the trouble for me. But for you, maybe you're like, I don't have a phone. My parents are they're telling me to wait, which is fine. Maybe it's your iPad, whatever electronics you have. Maybe it is your friendships. Maybe it's your video games, whatever that looks like. To be honest, a lot of our attention is given to our phones. Now, for me, something that's helped me kind of monitor and track that is paying attention to my usage on my phone. If you have an iPhone, there's an app on there that screen time that lets you know how much you're actually using your phone. And so for me, it's kind of a game to see week in and week out how much I either use my phone, how much more I use my phone compared to the week before, or how much less I used it compared to the week before. The goal is to use it less. But if our attention is given, a lot of it, to our phones, because there's a lot on our phones. I remember when not iPhones, but when cell phones first came out. First of all, cell phones were probably this tall when they first came out. Yes, this tall, okay? They were humongous. But secondly, you could do very little. When I got my first cell phone, all I could do was play 2 games. That was it. And text messaging was incredibly hard. It was a thing called T9. Ask your parents about it. They'll enlighten you. But now you can literally do everything and anything from your phone. I can control my TV. I can work from my phone. I can send emails. I can, have conferences via Zoom. Like, I can do everything from my phone. And so if everything is there, how do I change what my attention is focused on? And verse number 2 is, as Paul talks about us conforming, not being conformed to this world, but being transformed, Paul gives us a picture, and this is where we're going to kind of land the plane on what it looks like to refocus our attention and to make sure that our thinking is in the right direction. He says this, he says, don't be conformed, but be transformed. So the first thing to recognize is this. Paul's saying, listen, don't be squeezed, but be shaped. Don't be squeezed. Are you telling me don't be like orange juice or lemonade? By the way, fresh squeezed orange juice or lemonade. Mwah. No, he's saying, listen, don't be squeezed into the pattern of this world. So there's certain, messaging that we may get from what we see in the world, and sometimes it doesn't always line up. Now, the word world, not saying the globe with, all the water and the continents and all that. No, what he's talking about is the world system, because everything has a system. Everything has a system. From whatever device you're watching this on, whether it's your television, your phone, your computer, they have operating systems. And so in this world, there are different systems, because since the fall of man, going back to the Garden of Eden, things shifted over into the hands of the evil one, of Satan. And so he has a system and things that he set in place. Ultimately, going back to what Pastor Jimmy talked about last week in terms of distortion and clarity, to distort our identity and have us farther and farther away from God and looking less like God. So Paul says, don't be conformed. Don't be squeezed into the pattern of this world. But he says, be transformed, be shaped by the renewing of your mind. Ozan, how do I shape my mind? The shaping is all in the attention. So what you're focused on. So if you've ever noticed, I think Natalie talked about this a few weeks ago, how there was a particular show she was watching, and the girls on that show were really bratty. Those are Natalie's words, not mine. And Natalie began to notice that the more time she spent watching the show, the more she began to act like them. Or if maybe there's a particular, group of friends that you have, or a particular music group or artist that you like listening to, and you notice that you begin to maybe talk like them. Or maybe you have a particular artist that you look up to and you're like, you know what? I think I want to model myself after them. So you begin to dress like and look like them. Those are things that shape us. And so as followers of Jesus, what would it look like for us to be shaped and not squeezed into the mold of this world, but to be shaped? Because the shaping, the beautiful part is our shaping happens in God's hands, hence my hands. How do we allow him to shape our minds and not squeeze? I'm glad you asked. If you look at Psalm chapter 19, verse number 14, in it, David, yes, that same David who killed Goliath, slingshot and stone. David has this moment, and as he goes through Psalm 19, David's talking about the bigness of God, and then he begins to talk about something interesting. He talks about the Word of God in several different contexts, and as he does, he talks about just the importance of it to every aspect of his life, and he concludes the psalm by saying this: "May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, God." The words, what he says, he's talking about, are influenced by his meditation, what he thinks. But all of it is tied into, David says, how much he's around God and how much attention he gives to God. So when I say giving your attention to God, that doesn't mean you need to find a picture of, Jesus and have a staring contest with it. I blinked. Because you'll lose every time. But really, it is, how are you allowing the things of God, to shape your mind? So, going back to, as we wrap up here, our good old Plato. If you were the Plato, and let's say the thing that you give your most attention to or shaping you is your phone, how can I use my phone or my iPad or whatever it looks like to help shape me and transform and renew my mind? Great question. For example, if you don't have the Bible app on your phone, go ahead and get that. Now, some of junior hires, you may say, well, my parents have restrictions on my phone and all of that. Talk to them. Say, listen, Mom, I want to use the Bible app. It's part of my screen time or my technology time during the day. Let them know. The Bible app has plenty of content on there, from Bible plans that are simple enough for you to read. If there's a subject you want to know more about, whether it's love, anxiety, stress, whatever it looks like, or you have questions about God, there's Bible plans in there for that. There's even actual video content in there. So there's a great series on there called The Chosen, and it talks about, kind of gives a real life picture of Jesus and his life and his ministry. Check that out. Or maybe it looks like there are plenty of apps out there for you, like apps to help you think more about God, apps that give you reminders, like a daily verse. That's what it looks like, is using something, because this isn't bad, but what we do with it maybe is what's a little bad. So using this and allowing that and allowing God through it to help shape our minds. And of course, the most essential and basic and really the easiest is this, good old Bible. And as we've talked about plenty of times over the past few weeks, it may be, as you're studying the Word, as you're reading the Word, and you may have questions, you may find things difficult to wrestle with, know that even in the things that are difficult for you, those things are helping shape you so that you're not squeezed into the pattern of the world, into the system of the world, but you are being shaped by the things of God. And as you're being shaped, here's the thing, as you have questions, like I've said before, bring them up to your community group leader, bring them up to someone on the staff, whether it's myself, Pastor Jimmy, Natalie, Danny, Christian. But guys, we are here because we want to see you and even ourselves to be shaped into the image of God, to allow our minds to be transformed and renewed. Because think about it. See this? You can go from being squeezed in to the image or the container. My hands. Squeezed into the image. Or you can allow yourself to be shaped and to be marked by the hand of God. So that when people see you, they see the fingerprints of God all over you. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for each and every person who's watching this, and as they go off into their community group time and moment, I pray that we would have rich discussions about what it looks like for us not to be squeezed into the mold of the world, but to be shaped by you, to allow you to shape our thinking, to give our attention to you in a new way. God, I pray for anyone who's dealing with distractions or have things in their lives that are shaping them into a different image. that God, they would allow you to come in, to transform, to renew their minds, that we could be marked by you, and that when others see us, when they hear the words coming out of our mouths or see the love that we're showing to others, that they would see and know that you're in our lives, and that the words of our mouth and the meditation, the thoughts of our heart would be acceptable in your sight. In your name, amen.
Hey, community groups, it's now time to transition to a time of discussion and interaction with your fellow community group members. But before we jump into discussion, I want you all to take just a few minutes and spend some time in prayer. I know that when we leave prayer toward the end, sometimes we have to rush it, or we might not get to it because parents are coming to pick us up and all the things. And so rather than jump straight into discussion today, let's take a minute to pray, and not just to pray by having your leader pray or by sharing a prayer request about someone else, which you can do that, that's great too. But let's spend some time praying for one another. And so if you're in a larger group, maybe break off into smaller groups of about 3 people. If you have a smaller group, maybe just pray for the person on your right. And I want to encourage you right now to share something personal, share a personal prayer request, let someone into your life a little bit, and help them to understand how they can be praying for you personally today. And then take some time doing that. Everyone in your group should get a chance to pray for someone else today. And if you're a little bit uncomfortable praying out loud, well, this is a great opportunity for you to do so in a smaller setting, to get comfortable praying for one another. So spend some time in prayer today, and then jump into discussion questions and carry out the rest of your night. Enjoy praying for each other.